Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Sugar and Spice. My name is Nkamze Mwatela. I will be with you for the hour. Today we're talking something I'm very familiar with, which is women in film. Now, traditionally we know a lot of areas and careers that are male-dominated, but we never think about film. We're going to be talking to female filmmakers today, as well as someone who has an experience with the data concerning women in film. But before we get into that conversation, we're headed into the kitchen with Chef Maina, who is back after a very long hiatus. Hello.
Nice
How
to
are
see
you?
Long time.
How are you doing?
Welcome.
Again, your chicken is, you're doing something strange.
No, it's actually, it's defrosting.
It's defrosting.
Yeah.
So what are we having today?
Today we're going to have chicken tikka.
Chicken tikka.
We're going to have naan bread.
Naan.
And a ring salad.
Ooh.
Yes.
Yes,
Simple dish, tasty. Takes a lot of time to marinate, but the end product, so it comes out well.
About how much time does it take to marinate?
Marinate, for best results, always is overnight.
Overnight, okay.
Yeah, but for now, for the purpose of the show, we're just going to do it for now and show people the process. But overnight is always best for marination.
Always best. So if you're
Yes.
watching at home, maybe you can do this overnight today and then go into tomorrow.
Yeah, and roast it
So
tomorrow.
we have here the chicken and then your veggie.
Yeah,
That's
this
for
is
the
for
salad.
the salad. We have the flour for the naan. The naan, we're going to combine some flour, eggs, yogurt, baking powder, salt, and sugar. And for tikka, it's always good to use the drumsticks.
The
Because
drumsticks.
they're soft, yeah.
Right.
The breast usually tends to get dry quickly.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to marinate the chicken, make the naan from scratch, and do the salad.
And what is this?
That's yogurt.
Yogurt.
It's going to be used for part of the dressing for the salad, and we're going to use it on the marination for the tikka.
Oh, okay. So that's
Yeah.
natural yogurt.
Natural yogurt.
Sugar-free.
Always
And then you
best.
have your little condiments.
Spices,
there.
my chili, my paprika, salt, and my Indian spices. Tomato paste, of course.
Is it just
Lemon
general
juice.
Indian spice or do you like specific?
Specific.
Yeah, so that's...
We have garam masala, danajira, coriander, turmeric, and now the chili for the
And now
tikka.
the chili for the
But the
tikka.
chili is optional.
Okay.
You don't have to put it in the tikka.
And what
Yeah.
is this?
Tomato
in here?
paste.
Tomato paste.
Yes.
All right, so we hope you're set up back home. When we return, we'll be talking to our first guest. Please don't go away. Welcome back to Sugar and Spice. We're talking women in film, but before we go onto the couch, you are going to be starting with
The naan.
the naan.
Yeah, no, first, sorry. We're going to start with the chicken tikka.
Have you forgotten this process? Have you
No,
forgotten
no,
how to
no,
do that?
I'm
Okay.
not. I'm sorry.
So-
So the tikka, we're going to put it to marinate first. While that is going on, we're going to work on the naan.
On the naan.
So those are two processes. As it
Okay.
marinates, we work on the naan to rest.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to leave you to it and invite our first guest.
Thank you.
We'll
Nice
talk
to see
about
you.
our
Nice to see
first
you
guest
again.
later.
Yeah.
But anyway, our first guest on the show is award-winning director Anne Mungai. Please welcome onto the show. Hello. Please have a seat.
Thank
it's
you.
good to see you.
See you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mwah. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so, Anne, tell us, you've been in the film industry for how long?
Since 1992.
1992, which is a very long time. So you are like a veritable, very veteran in this field.
Yes, that's
and so you know, I mean, you've seen it come from non-existence to now what it is, which is just like
I would
vibrant.
say from unbelievable
to, be
to believable.
to believable. So, I mean, just give us a little bit. I mean, what do you think of it now? When you look at it now, what do you think?
I think there's been a very good progress, and now we are able to tell our own stories, see them on TV, see our situations. It's great.
It's great. And I read in a lot of interviews, you do come back to that idea of being able to tell our own stories and something you're very passionate about.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Being able to tell our own stories regarding our own situations, our own issues, in our own way, because instead of copy-pasting, and I was motivated by this when I went to high school.
Right.
And in the high school, we had O levels, and then we had A levels. That means when you finished Form 4, you went on to Form 5 and Form 6. So I was the head girl, and the head girl was supposed to be in charge of entertainment.
Right.
And I was looking for films that could motivate and inspire the girls that I was leading in school. So the film that came close to my mind at that time was Guess Who is Coming for Dinner Tonight, starring Sidney Poitier. And this is the film where this white woman or white lady brings home to her parents her husband to be or fiancé, only for the parents to discover he's black.
Right.
Yeah, and
right.
that shock. And then I looked for other films that would inspire the girls. And unfortunately, at that time, the films that I found, the black woman was always portrayed as a victim of circumstance. She was either a slave being taken off to some far country, or she was pregnant by some man who had denied her, and she was in a dilemma, she didn't know what to do. Or she was being beaten, she was being raped. It was always an African woman as a victim.
Right.
I didn't see any film with any African woman as a hero or a heroine.
Yes.
And so I started questioning myself because I couldn't come to it. I had witnessed my mother bring us up single-handedly.
Right.
My father died when I was 13 years old.
13 years old, right.
And I saw how my mother was struggling with the culture in the village, the culture that required her to be inherited. And I didn't see her really confront. She just somehow, in a subtle way, argued her way out that she needed to look after her children without any interference of another man.
That she could handle it on her own.
Yeah, she could handle it. It was difficult,
right.
But she taught us to work hard with our hands.
Right.
And so I was looking for characters like her, but this African woman who was always a victim, crying because she's pregnant, crying because she has been left by her husband, crying because she's a slave, crying because she's always
always crying,
always crying,
yeah,
always a victim.
Yeah,
I couldn't identify with this.
Because you're looking for someone like your mother.
Yeah,
and, you know, who's portrayed in that way.
And that's what she was telling, that you have to work hard and you have to focus.
Right.
Work hard and focus. Where do you want to go? And when you focus and have your goal, you reach where you want to go. So I was looking for such characters.
Right.
So these characters were always crying and always victims, were causing inconsistency in my mind. In your mind, this is two different messages. So I started finding out if all the films that I can see now portray the African woman in this negative light, how can we portray ourselves in this other in the other way, in the way we know? Portraying ourselves like in the way I've lived, in the way I know, in the way I've experienced. Right. And I was told filmmaking could only be done at KBC. Some people were confused. They were telling me School of Journalism. So at school we had career masters. When you're finishing school, they guide you like what is your first choice of who you want to be when you leave school. Right. So my first choice, of course, was filmmaking. But they weren't sure whether I would do it at the Nairobi University School of Journalism or at KBC. Right. At that time, the school, Butere Girls was the school. They weren't sure how KMC worked, the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication. Yeah. It existed. Second choice was being a lawyer. Right. Because that's, again, you identify with that strong kind of, Then the third choice, which was, I really didn't, wasn't serious. Yeah, but I had to have a third choice. And I said, well, maybe that time it was called air hostess. So then I'll travel and see the world. And then I'll see how the world out there looks like. That might be fun. If I don't get filmmaking and being a lawyer. And so after my sixth form, I actually came to Nairobi to see how all these courses. And I discovered there was the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication that was actually teaching film. Although that time it was being run, the film training was being run by Germans, from German, and mostly sponsored by the Frederick Ebert Foundation. And it wasn't very well known. So I applied. And when you apply, you keep your fingers. Of course, you're just thinking, I hope I get into the film. Yes. I waited for the letter. The letter came in the post office too. I was invited for the interview. And when we went for the interview, we were so many.
Oh, uh-huh.
We were so many.
And the intake was going to be about how many?
They wanted like about 9 people.
9 people.
And I think we were over 100.
Oh, wow.
And then the men were the majority. And there was this intimidation. Because they had their suits on and their ties and their briefcases. And you know, you're just there, a young girl. So it's like, I told some girl who was seated next to me, I said, we stand no chance. Then she said, but there's no harm. You just go through the interview. If you get taken, well and good. If you don't taken,
who knows?
So we went through the first session of the interview in the morning to eliminate a number of people. It was oral.
Right.
Yeah.
So which means that it's just basically being asked questions
just
and you're answering.
And remember the people interviewing us were the Germans from the Freddie Kebert Foundation.
Yeah. And what kind of questions do they have?
It was like, why do you want to be
a filmmaker?
A filmmaker. What do you know about film? What do you understand about film? How do you think film is made? You know, such questions. Then just showing us pictures and film clips, and just like to test your IQ, telling you analyze this photograph, analyze this.
It's so interesting because I don't even think that's how the intake
works anymore. But I think because
anymore.
I had passion, I had passion for it. When I look back, I was able to analyze. But I think I was able to analyze because I had so much passion for it, and because of what I had seen earlier and I wanted to change.
Yeah, it's what people call the eye. You had the eye in
yes,
there, yeah.
I was able to interpret those photos and those clips that had never been to a film school. So we finished the oral. We came back in the afternoon for the written. And from 100 people, 100 plus people, I think we were reduced to about 20. So when we went back in the afternoon at 2 o'clock, I remember in the morning the interviews had started at 9, went for lunch break, came back at 2 o'clock, and the person who was coordinating said, if you don't hear your name, please go. I was so sure I was among the ones who were going to go. Yeah, because I said, there's no way I can compete with these men. There's no way. These men are too smart. And
because that's already an attitude that's been sold, you know.
Yeah, because most things, because women and film, I mean, it was how.
And you know, it's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that because we're talking women in film, is that we often think of male-dominated careers as, you know, medicine and law and that kind of thing, where you say it's so hard for a woman going into that. But people don't realize how hard it is to be a female filmmaker.
Yes, it is.
And why would you say that is? Because you've been here longer. I mean, now I don't even understand why it's considered a male-dominated field in that sense. But I'm like, why would you think that was the case?
I thought that was the case because, first of all, when we went to the interview, about 3/4 were men. So we were like a dot in that whole panel of interviews. So you think, if we are so few, we are 100 and plus, we are like maybe 150. Maybe among all this, we are just maybe about 6 women. What are the chances that I'll be among these 6 people? I'll be taken.
And you're still right now, because you've been in this, I mean, since you said 1992, and you're still one of the few, I mean, still a male-dominated field in a lot of ways. Not that it's becoming more equalized, isn't it? But right now, it's still a male-dominated field.
It's still a male-dominated because, you know, it requires a lot of creativity, a lot of thinking, a lot of inspiration. And why I would say it's difficult for women, like I remember when I was writing, you know, your inspiration can come anytime. Could be when you are riding on a matatu. The funny thing, I can get even inspiration at 3 o'clock in the night. Now, if you have, like me, I was married then when I was in the institute. If you have a husband who doesn't understand that you write, and you can get inspiration at night. If you get up in the night and you're having a pen and paper, it looks funny.
Right. Or you want to, you work long hours. You're filming until 12, 1 a.m. And it's so that's probably the relationship as to why it would be considered, you know.
Like I remember when I was doing my first film, I had to go with my son.
Right.
When he was a baby. Just like you saw.
Yeah, just
I had
the
to
way
go with him.
Yeah.
And then, so the crew was like, you are the director, you're having a baby. Each time we want to shoot, the baby is crying, and the sound is
carrying.
It's carrying into the conversation. So you are the director, tell us what to do. So it was so hard. I looked at the script because I couldn't find someone to live with the baby with, because at that time it also looks crazy. You are a young mother, you have a baby, and you want to make a film.
And you want to make a film.
Yeah.
And people kind of look at you like, what are your priorities?
Where are your priorities? So actually the first hotel I checked in when we were going to film, people just looked at me like, am I, because I was carrying my baby, and I think a tripod.
Yeah.
And the cameraman carrying, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we go on set. I thought it would be very easy to give the baby to somebody to hold. But the baby started crying, so it was interfering with all the time with the sound.
My goodness.
So I had to look at the script and say, okay, you know what, we are going to change the script and insert in the part of a baby.
The baby shall cry in the script.
Yeah, so that in case the baby is heard crying in the scene, at least he appeared in one scene. Yeah.
But that must be so, and now I get it in that sense, because at the time, I don't even know how people do it even now, because no one ever thinks of those things. It's not like other careers which have started to include daycare or say there's a room where...
It was not there that time.
It was not there that time.
A woman, you are just supposed to be unmarried, to take care of your husband and children. There was nothing like someone thinking, how do you manage to work and then come home and cook and then come back and look after children.
No one is trying to help you with a PA and trying to say, okay, you know, you'll take care of baby, you know. So, I mean, those are just like, that's one of the challenges, you know, you're talking about.
Yeah.
When you talk about women in film, what are the other challenges that you faced along the way?
The other challenges I faced were like, you see, if you're a woman director, then you are giving instructions and directions and telling people silence on set. And you know, it's like, it's funny. Say, what is this woman? You know, you are a woman, you are...
At the time it was considered...
Yeah, how can a woman give people...
Be in charge.
Yeah, be in charge. Give people instructions, tell people silence on set and tell people. So there was still those cultural... Barriers, of you giving instructions. So you face such challenge. A woman doing this, and I remember even when my first film was finished, a friend of mine told me, oh, Anne, I would really have loved to come and see your film, but my husband asked me, you're going to see a film directed by a woman? Are you crazy?
What does that even mean? I mean, you're going to see a film directed by a woman?
Yeah.
Wow. And so, I mean, because I have read that you have said that. There's an interview where you said people always look at you with a question mark.
Yeah.
What are you doing in a male field?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that something you get until now? When you
it's not completely finished. It's not completely just finished. Like you should be home looking after.
Yeah,
so it's doing what women are supposed to
be doing.
Yeah, it's not completely finished.
Yeah, and especially in this career where you travel a lot, you work long hours.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of... You do very creative things which people consider that shouldn't be on TV. You know, you portray certain things. So what would you say your kind of film signature is? Because like you said, you found things that you didn't identify with. And one of the things is that women were always victims, right? Because you were trying to look for what you knew, which was a person like your mother, who is a heroine, and what you've also been taught to focus. What would you say you try to say in your films?
I try to give hope, and I try to create strong female characters.
Right.
I try to address issues, social issues in our society. I don't really like copy and paste, like I see a US program run, German program, then I come and copy paste, put in Kenyan characters.
Africanize it.
No. I like looking at situations and issues that affect our society and try and bring some drama to it or comedy to it in a way that can communicate to people. And that's why especially women, just to try and create strong characters like what I saw.
Like the ones you know and the ones you are, right?
Yeah.
And what you are. You know what you are. And so, and it's interesting because you also wrote a book, isn't it? Political communication
in film. Yes. Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing that you're saying, how that affects the politics.
Political communication in film is a book I did after I went to do my master's at Cardiff University. And I was trying to learn film more. I changed my role from now being behind the camera to kind of being a scholar to study film, to study what makes our African films and like the films of the West, the films of the East, what makes them different? Why were the West looking at us in a negative light, portraying the African woman always as a victim? Then in political communication, this when I learned that film, now my roles changed from an artist to a scholar.
Right.
And as a scholar, I was saying that film is not only ideology. You know, when you are doing ideology, trying to portray, film has also a bit of politics. The filmmakers may not know, but it has a bit of politics in that when you are writing, you are like in control. You are the one portraying, you know, you are the one representing your, like the way they were representing us.
Yeah, it's your views.
It's your views. But you know, when you are representing people, there's no way you can represent 100%.
Right.
There has to be some bias. You have to be biased towards certain angle. So from doing my master's, I learned that it was just that bias. It was just politics. You portray these people, and visual images are very strong. And so people will think this is how these people.
This is how the world is, like what you were saying you saw with women being victims.
Yeah.
And you actually got confused.
Yeah.
Even if you knew better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it actually does kind of seep into the psyche. All right. So we're going to take a little break. When we return, we'll talk more with Anne about her filmography, and we'll be talking to our next guest. Don't go away. Welcome back to Sugar and Spice. We're talking women in film, and we are here with Anne Mungai. And we have two other guests for you, but before we get introduced to those guests, we're going to go into the kitchen with Anne, who, it turns out, surprise, surprise, is the mother to our chef, Maina. So today Maina is under a lot of pressure. Come with me, Anne. He's under a lot of pressure. I brought your mama to the set. Hello. Yes. Oh.
Hello.
Oh. That's so cute. What is happening?
Welcome, welcome. Have a seat.
Yes, have a seat.
Yeah.
So, and he did mention that you're a very good cook, is what he said.
Oh.
When I asked him, I said, say something about your mother, and then he was so confused. He's like, what do you want me to say? He said, well, she's a very good cook, and that you're very precise, that you do things over and over until you get it right.
Yes.
That is what he had to say about you.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and then he said you're everything. That's he also said that. So I'm giving him marks. He said she's everything.
I was not telling you to
Thank
tell her
you.
anyway.
No, I have to tell her. I'm giving you marks, points. So tell us, where have you gotten to
Where you
over
left
here?
me, this is the marination which I'm just about to finish. We put in all our spices, about 7. We have
So you put in all this paprika. I
Yes.
actually thought it was going to be a bit less.
no.
Wow,
For color,
okay.
you see, it's
Right.
I find it healthier to put the natural spices than the red and yellow color. So I'd rather put paprika and turmeric.
Okay.
Then we have the coriander, the dana jira, the garam masala, and we have, yes, our chili I said is optional, but in this case I've put it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
but I left a small part for Madame to do.
Oh.
She can squeeze the lemon into the tikka.
No, you're
before I
like in
finish
front of the
mixing.
cameras. I can put you to work. You can't tell me anything.
And just squeeze over the
I
sieve.
see what you did there. You're like, there was what you meant to. She can't say no.
And the lemon is always good when you rub it first before cutting it to get out the juice.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's get out
Yeah.
the juice. Okay.
You can see it's coming out.
Ah. So what is under here?
This is the mixture of the naan.
Oh,
We
this
have yogurt, sugar, salt, flour, corn oil.
corn oil.
Yes,
You didn't put in egg because you wanted to.
I did.
You did?
Yes, I put
Okay,
an egg.
this is why we are.
There's plenty of juice.
Now you just made sure I won't eat the lamb. So it's egg, corn flour, sugar.
No, egg, flour, sugar, salt, baking powder.
Baking powder.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
See a lot of
So is it
lemon
out?
juice.
You see, there's a lot of lemon juice that's come out.
Just put it. We need a good tinge there.
Oh, so that's still in the marination.
Yes.
Ooh, I can imagine that now overnight.
Imagine.
That's
We mix
good.
it all up overnight.
So now this is you have that cloth over it.
yeah, so it
because-
can rise.
Oh,
you
so
put
it can
to
rise.
rise, yes.
See, I know nothing. You keep on acting like I know about cooking. And
Yeah, 'cause I assume
we've
you
had
should.
this. We've had
We've had this conversation
Yeah.
before. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
so we
thought
put
you
it that way so it can rise.
All right.
You give it some time.
Okay.
Then you can.
Thanks so
explain the
much
other
for
process
telling me
later.
about that. And now, so what do we do?
I don't know.
Okay, I think that's
I
the
think that's it. Yeah, that's with it.
that's
So I'll
it with
just
the
mix
lemon.
it after. Yes. Would you like some coffee? Tea?
Yes, I
Coffee,
like
huh?
some coffee.
Okay.
Oh.
And Makamzi,
I'm
what did you
so
like?
moved. I'd like coffee.
Coffee
please.
as well.
Thanks.
Huh?
I'm so happy. Maina is so well behaved today. His mother is in the studio. And you know, she did mention that baby who she had to put in the scene
Was
Yeah,
me.
he was
you.
It was him. Yes.
We were the baby who was crying. who had to be
Like crying for me to carry him.
for you to carry him. And he's the what born? You have how many children?
I have 4.
4. So he came number one.
Number 2.
Number 2. So at the time you already had another child.
Another
and you had to deal with this other
This one,
and
yes.
you're filming and
Yes.
that was your first film, you said?
Yes.
And that was what was the film was that one?
It's called Wekesa Crossroads.
Wekesa at Crossroads.
Yes.
Okay. That sounds interesting. I know about your other films, which we'll talk about when we get on the couch, which caused a cultural revolution.
So
but
here's some
we'll
coffee.
talk about that later.
You help yourself to sugar?
And why do we put this?
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
you do that. You want to put it in the naan?
No.
What's happening? what's happening? Calm down. And you're boiling that
egg.
egg because...
For salad. The
Oh,
ring
for
salad.
Oh, no, it's even going to be an egg salad.
Yes.
So what am I going to have? Just the chicken?
You don't need eggs? Oh,
No, I don't. You know this.
Chicken and salad.
But it's okay. I won't be
You love the
emotional.
chicken and salad. Don't worry.
All right, all right.
Yes.
So what are we doing next?
Next, I'm gonna finish up the marination, just let it sit in a bit. Then I'm gonna knock down the dough and make like now chapati rolls.
So you're going to finish up this marination, which
I'm
is
just
what?
gonna mix it up. It's already done.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted that to have something to do with it. And then now we mix it.
Okay.
Some teamwork.
All right. Do you have any questions for your mother that you can never ask when you're behind closed doors and now you're like, opportunity?
No, I'm not gonna ask them in front of TV because I'll still meet her after this.
You still meet her after this. She knows
Yes.
where you live. All right. So when we get back, we will be headed back to the couch and we will have our other 2 guests joining us. Please don't go away. Welcome back to Sugar and Spice. We're talking women and film. So Anne and I are headed back to the couch. You may proceed. And our next 2 guests are Wangoi Karaoke, who is a producer, mostly for commercials, as well as Gerald Langeri, who runs the Actors Database site, actors.co.ke. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Looking good in beige and white.
Nice to
It's
meet
nice
you.
to meet
Hello.
you.
Hello.
Gerald, hello.
Should I
Sit
remove my
down,
shoes?
down. Get comfortable.
Should I remove my shoes?
No,
Clean
you
if I
can't.
can
No,
to remove my
thanks.
shoes and-
We don't want that smell in the studio. We don't want that smell in the studio, thanks. Our studio is smelling good. So women's shows, you can smell good. All right, so Wangoi, tell us, you said you are a producer.
Yes.
Yes, and
maybe a little bit of my background. I studied film and TV in Australia
right.
and came back, and unfortunately, or fortunately for me, I came back and I didn't have technical skills.
Oh.
I was looking for work. I'd present my degree, which is fantastic, but on set, I was useless.
You
I
told
was
grab
just,
that camera, do
I was
this, and
just
you're
another body on set.
Uh-huh.
So I decided to look for a place where I could get technical skills.
Right.
And I went to Mohammed Amin Foundation, which I did 2 years there. And that was like the best experience a student who loves film and TV could ever ask for. Because I got a chance to do a soap opera. It was Africa's first soap opera. It was called Heart and Soul.
Yes, I remember that. Okay, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So and we were being trained by the BBC, people from the BBC, and it was fantastic.
It was fantastic.
I grew personally, professionally, and because we had just done one term at Mohammed Amin, I found my footing on set because I could talk to a cameraman in camera language, soundman in soundman language.
You now knew what you were
now
not
I
a body
know.
anymore.
Now I can use. I could talk to someone and give instructions or request something or whatever. So yeah, I was the third AD, a little skinny little girl.
That sounded a bit third assistant
Yes,
director.
third assistant director, sorry.
And they're all like, what is that?
Yeah,
What's happening?
sorry. Yeah, so I was the third assistant director. So the way she was saying how, it was a bit off for a lady to say, quiet on set. And that voice that you use is the one from,
It has to be
it
from
has to come from the inside.
because
So
you realize very
everybody's
quickly
like,
that if you don't use it, nothing is
nothing's happening.
Yeah.
We won't shoot. We'll be here all day.
Yes.
So you know, I also got that feeling. Unfortunately, it was 2002.
And that's 2002, 1992. That's 10 years apart.
Yeah.
And that's still...
That was still there
the case.
then.
Yeah.
But the good thing was, if I would suggest to any female woman, a woman who would like to get into TV, you need to know about the equipment you're using. Don't just be a producer about numbers and budgets and stuff.
Which is, I guess, like everything else, you need to know if you're going to be good at anything, no matter who you are, you have to know your stuff to command respect as well.
Yes.
So you are a producer, which, if you would explain to people what that means.
I'm the boss. Okay.
These are the ones we normally, like, as actors, we're like the producer.
The producer is, okay, there's different levels of production level. There's the executive producer. That's the person who comes with the bags of money to do the production. That person is God on set.
And it's just
she's God. That person is God.
Yeah.
You do whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, and then there's the producer. The producer is the one who now brings in budgets, breaks down a script into numbers and into things, numbers, places, people.
Right.
The production manager is a person who hires. She's the sort of like a HR in the whole team. It's the one who gets the most skilled people at whatever it is, depending on the budget.
Depending on the budget as well. But the producer has said, look, you can only have this.
Yes.
You cannot have that fancy person who wants to work for some other money.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, so the conversation is between those three people when it comes to putting the production together.
When it comes to the wheels that turn behind the scenes.
Yes, it's the executive producer, production manager, and usually between the producer and production manager, there's a person called a line producer. A line producer is the one that makes sure that the budget that has been given does not go off. You don't spend more than what you have.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you'd rather even spend less if you can make some savings.
You can make,
So
that's basically the structure.
Yeah.
And I like that you've explained that, because we always have this idea. I think, it's already, like I said, people think male-dominated career, why would film be included in a male-dominated career? And it's pretty much because it's a corporation.
Yes.
It runs pretty much like a corporation, so it's that whole, the boss, the money, the da-da-da. There's all these things going on behind the scenes. Exactly. And a lot of the time, the people who tended to go there because of the whole idea of being in charge or commanding respect were men. So, I mean, after you had gotten your technical experience and now you could talk with your outside voice, as I call it.
Yes.
You had your outside voice, you had it going. What were your challenges? Because she does a lot of film, and you said you're mostly a person who deals with advertising.
Yeah.
And what's the atmosphere like? Because I know it is a bit different.
Yeah.
But what are your challenges in as far as women in that kind of career?
In terms of advertising or film in general?
In terms of film in general, I suppose.
I think it's a very funny thing. In fact, we were talking with Gerald a while back, just now actually, that it's a very interesting phenomenon in Kenya that producers are mostly women.
Right.
The rest of the world, mostly men.
Men. That is true, yes. It's a very interesting phenomenon in Kenya.
Yes,
you're right.
in Kenya. Yeah. And the other day, Gerald and I were in a film for One Fine Day Films, and I was being trained by a guy called David Brown. And it was interesting for him. He didn't understand why there's so many women who wanted the position for production manager, production something. Because for them, it's more of a male. Abroad, a producer is a man. They're mostly men. And it's interesting to note that probably because our, how do you say, pioneers like her, for example, taking on the the initiative to push the glass ceiling.
Right. And I think
and we just followed right behind her, you know,
and I think
step by step.
Yeah, it was like behind, and we also had the advantage, I think, in terms of what you're saying of the fact that film at the time, it was not just about being a male-dominated area, it's that it kind of didn't exist, like you said, from impossibility.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, the people who pioneered film in Kenya were women.
Yes.
So that kind of created that idea that it wasn't, okay, it was normal. Yeah. So like you said, you just kind of were like, okay, let's go for that thing.
Let's go for that. And of course, like when I was pursuing it, my parents didn't understand. What are you doing? Marketing? No. What are you doing? I'm doing film and TV. What will you become? I can become a director, a producer, a director. How do you become a director? Because, you know, from the corporate world, a director is someone who's been in the business for so long. You end up being a director in your 60s. You know, director of Barclays Bank, or the director of... So he didn't understand. I had to like now like just teach them what exactly I was doing. But to answer your question, the challenges were to further break the glass wall that our film mothers were pushing. And it kind of has like been successful, because now when you go to a production house, you'll find women in there. Yeah, and women who are worth their salt. They have experience, they have skills, they're educated, and to a point where now, you know, you have your Hollywood producers who are looking for locations in this area, in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, you know, are willing to give Kenyan crew or actually consider using you as the main crew or second unit crew in Kenya, because we know, or they know that, you know, the job will get done.
The job will get done, and it's not about whether you're a man or a woman.
Exactly.
And you know, there's someone back home going, second unit crew, what are they saying? But anyway, it's fine, just excuse us. We're all like, oh, okay, now we can talk the way we want. Gerald, you're here.
My turn.
Woman sitting.
Oh, yes.
See how men are, they're like, yes.
Yes, my turn.
Now we need to learn as women. We need to learn as women. Because we shy away when it's our turn. We're like, okay, it's time for me now. Okay, thank you. Him is like, yeah, so now I was wondering when you were getting to me. No, because you're here. Let me even tell you why you're here, so you don't get too excited. No, anyway, because you run a database, which is actors.co.ke, but it has the range of film people from directors to producers.
It's mostly actors, actually.
It's mostly actors.
Yes.
But do you now have like do you have a bit of the directing and the producing fraternity?
No, not really. I've kind of locked down the site to actors only.
Okay.
That's the reason why it's called actors.co.ke.
Yeah, of course.
And I have been approached by a couple of crew people, you know, directing producers to start maybe a different website. And I don't know, it's really overwhelming running the site as it is. And yeah, I'd love to see crew.co.ke.
Yeah, because that's and it is true, and it is different things.
Exactly.
But of course, via running that, you've come in a lot of contact with just even learning how films get made and the business behind film as well.
Yes.
So I'm sure you have a better idea, because we're just thinking we needed someone who kind of can look at it from a blanket perspective in terms of statistics, in terms of seeing it from that point of view where you're not in it. I mean, because I'm sure you can see the difference between, I don't know, you started actors.co.ke how long ago?
2011, 4 years ago.
2011, 4 years ago. So in those 4 years, what have you noticed in terms of that trend of women in film? Because
for me personally, if you ask me, it's a female-dominated industry.
It is a female-dominated.
It is. It's not a male-dominated industry. I mean, true. In terms of producers, in terms of the directors, even, because I'm seeing female directors come up, you know. And actresses, I mean, wow, well, female actors. There are many.
Thank you for catching yourself there with your actress.
There are many, and it's an upside, but at the same time, it's a downside for actors, especially because now the competition is stiff. You see, the opportunities are less, and there are many actors who want to become, you know, grab those small spots out there, you know.
But I find that, you know, we're talking about two separate issues, because there's an issue where you can have very many women working in an industry, but you have very many women's stories being told in the industry. And I think in that sense, I mean, arguably, we are still very male-dominated.
Not really,
Look at them nodding. No, it's true.
Not really.
I mean, this is something we are facing, like she said, it's a perception thing. It's what stories sell. It's what blah, blah, blah sells. And what story is selling is still a very paternalistic story. What story is selling is still the woman who's a certain way. You know, even when you have a strong character, I was telling Anne earlier, it's very interesting to me that someone pointed out to me the other day, I watch a lot of Kenyan shows, and as much as it's grown so big, and there are a lot of women on the shows, and you know, producing, directing, whatever, the shows are the same. Like the women are the same. They're either victims, or if they're strong women, they're horrible women. They're never just normal people. So I mean, that's another issue. Like, you know, that I wanted to ask you about in terms of women in film. kind of the challenge of portraying the kind of story that you want to tell, especially in advertising, because advertising is that place where, you know, father, mother, child, can I wash your clothes for you? You know, because you have dirtified yourself. And it's always the, you know, there's
We
that
have
story.
such
Yes,
a
so tell us about
long way to go.
in terms of that, right?
A long, long, long,
Congo is like
long way to go.
You have the jobs, but not the voice.
Yes. I'll
Yeah.
put it together. I'll get you actors, locations, and everything.
You do the
But
budget.
even I even think sometimes the creatives that are in most advertising agencies, unfortunately for them, are not given the elbow space to be creative. Because what happens is you have a client who wants, I want like that one. You remember that ad, the one for Nini? You just put, instead you put,
The
you know,
copy-pasting you were
copy
talking
pasting.
about.
Yeah, to a point where there are some clients who would come with a DVD with an advert from another country and say, I want like this one.
Oh, wow.
I want like this one, and just put Kenyans there.
And just put Kenyans.
And then they would like miss out, like I was telling Gerald a few minutes ago, they miss out on things like the little nuances about who we are and how we behave, how we sit,
And our market as well.
and how we. So if I have an Indian advert to copy paste, I can't do this. This is not part of our
Because
language.
that's why that Indian advert is interesting
it's
in India.
in India. And sometimes the thing that is being used is outdated, can be 10 years old, being brought into the... So, yes, we have a very long way to go. We're still very traditional, very paternalistic in the way we see women being portrayed, the roles that they play, still in the kitchen, still washing clothes. It's never dad who is like, you know, still picking the laundry, still, you know, preparing kids to run off into the bus. Yeah, the guy, I don't know, we just see men shaving and I don't know, what else do they do? And wearing a
driving
suit.
home from work.
What else
And
do they do?
You know, I remember that there was a while back, I don't know if you remember this advert that they did for, it was when I was really young, but it was for White Rose. Dry cleaning, and he comes in and the secretary is with her nails and wrapping and and it caused such uproar because how dare she say no to the man in the advert. You remember there was some, and it was such a big deal because I remember I was a child and I didn't understand it, and I didn't understand why it was a big deal.
Well, I mean, I agree and disagree at the same time because you have directors like Wanyuri Kayo, for example, and all the films from Awispa to Pumzi to, she currently has a series called Status. She always has the woman lead portraying, you know, such strong characteristics, like, you know, she's not the perception we have of women who are weak and whatnot, you know. And she actually agrees to be a feminist, you know, because I remember asking her once, are you a feminist? And she told me, yeah.
Well, have you said
And
that,
it's not a
like,
bad
that's a
thing.
bad thing? She
Yeah,
actually
exactly.
agrees
She actually
to
asked me
being a
that.
feminist.
Exactly. She actually asked me that why as if it, you know.
As if you're
Exactly.
asking me if I am a prostitute, and I'm like, she actually agreed.
Exactly.
That she
You know,
you see
I'm
how he
shocked.
said it?
Yes,
It's funny
yeah,
that he said it.
yeah.
No, but you know what we're trying to say is that it's not there, it's the balance of it.
Yeah.
Because I find it interesting that, you know, like you're saying, it's true. In Kenya, it's very dominated by women, but it's like 80-20 in terms of them being there. But then it flips when it comes to the kind of stories that are told. We're still living in that paternalistic story. I don't know what you have to say about that, Anne. Do you still find like that's kind of where we're living?
Yeah, there is presentation. I find like, okay, we are there in the field, we are there behind the camera, we are writing. But sometimes I really get concerned with what stories. We have said we want to tell our stories. So now what stories are we telling? And that's why I said it disturbs me. We are telling our own stories, and yet we have earned it so much for it. And then we start copy-pasting.
We start copy-pasting.
We start copy-pasting in everything, in advertisement, in our stories. We get this story from I don't know where, God knows. And we just plant their Kenyan characters, and they're acting in some culture and making some funny signs.
That we don't really...
that we can't. So,
and we don't realize that those
and you
people...
see the audience doesn't know, they just watch and they can't connect.
And it
you see
goes
they don't
so
know what is
deeply into
making
your
them
psyche. Not connect.
What is making them not connect, but it's because they are Kenyan characters, yes, but acting in a very strange culture that people can't identify with. So there is still currently a disconnect. We've reached there, yes, we are making films, but what are we?
It's almost like we're afraid to tell our own stories.
Yeah, afraid to tell our own
still
story.
afraid to speak
and
up.
It becomes very funny. Like, look, Nigerian stories are very similar to ours. There are issues, there are situations like corruption, issues like prostitution, sexual abuse. You know, they have those problems that are very close to us, but they tell it. They may copy the techniques of Hollywood, but the content is their stories. But here, it's like we have a fear. A fear, and it's like everything we want to do, a topic we want to do, we look at politics. Politics. And it's like also, politics can be used to victimize you. So people are kind of afraid to say topics. Like, for example, maybe if I'm a filmmaker, instead of tackling a topic on corruption, just as an artist and from the way I see it, but you start thinking, God, the moment I touch corruption,
what will people think?
Yeah,
what will people say?
And you kind of do it in a cliche way, actually, because you're trying, it's dishonest.
But is it there? Like, is there in Kenyan film region corruption?
No, I always find that when people try to do messaging in their films a lot of the time, when they do it from a perspective of fear, which means they apologize as they're telling the story. So all they do is they'll talk about it. They'll just say, so you see, you shouldn't be corrupt.
Yes.
But they wouldn't tell the story how it is. Like, they wouldn't use the images, they wouldn't use the picture to tell the story. They wouldn't let it hit home.
Like, if you see,
because they don't want to be too realistic.
This West African film called Nzala.
Yes.
Nzala actually was talking about corruption in this West African country, but they showed it. They showed the way these guys were exchanging money, and but in a certain way you can see how corruption happens. But here I'm yet to see.
We're still apologizing.
We are still apologizing, and so then now we hide behind Nigeria. And we are very happy to watch those issues that happened to us, but Nigerians are tackling them on the screen. So then now we identify with those issues.
We do it at a distance.
And now we get glued to.
And it's also still not our culture.
And then you ask Kenyans, why do you like Nigerian movies? But you know, that is just like my village. That is just like my leader. That is just like my pastor. Then you say, okay, their stories are like our stories. So why are we afraid to handle our issues? So I really get disturbed when we now hide behind Nigerian movies or hide behind copy-pasting Hollywood movies. You see that Hollywood movies, then now we plant there.
Plant what we think. So like you said, a lot of people don't even, are not even aware of the terminology of what it means to make a film, or what it means, you can see from those kinds of conversations. Like, it was 1 minute, they did that for 1 minute. So you people do nothing all day, you just kind of go, what do you do exactly? So that kind of thing. So, I mean, we'll get you to take us through your filmography as well, because like we're talking, these belong to Anne. While we're on it, these here on the table belong to Anne. So this is you can just take us as we go from right to left and tell us about your awards.
First one, this one here is from Mnet.
This one here is from Mnet, right?
Yeah, for best director.
No, for what film?
It was Saikati.
Saikati.
I
mean, I'm sure everyone from a certain era remembers Saikati.
that movie.
Like the first film ever.
Yes.
And that is from Zanzibar Film Festival. It's the Dao Film Festival. That was the jury's award, but for Saikati 2.
For Saikati 2.
Yeah.
Right.
Again for best directing. The other one was from Burkina Faso.
Burkina Faso, Ouagadougou.
It's the biggest festival in on the continent. And I got this for, if you see there's a woman there, you can see there was a woman, and there's a child, and there is the flame. And when I got that award, it was like I was receiving it on behalf of women to pass that candle, that light.
The torch.
The torch. You have to keep on passing it for women to carry on, because the film Saikati got several awards. It got best projection of an African woman's image, because they said that was the film that showed an African woman resilient and actually knowing what she was going for. And it was also, so it was best projection of an African woman's image and best story. And it also got African communication, African professionals in communication award.
Nice.
So 3, and then back home here, because there was a lot of international write-up. write up about it.
And the last one is from
Plan International. I did a film called Don't Cry, Child of Africa. It was about the plight of street kids. Yeah, so that one got that award.
Is that the documentary that you
the documentary,
yes,
Don't Cry.
Yes,
Child
I
of
read up
Africa.
on that. All I remember...
And then that one also got the head of state.
Ah,
Yeah, the head of state.
I remember
award,
you
yeah.
for Psychiatry, of course, and Tough Choices, because when we were in high school, if you were in a girls' boarding school, you had to watch Tough Choices and be told you see. To use it. It is one of those films. So I mean, if you had like a last comment to make, Wangoi, say talking to women in film who may be getting into or who already are, what would you say?
Get training. You need to know what you're talking about.
You need to know what you're talking about.
Because you need to have skills because you'll be employed and you'll be asked, can you please get me an XLR cable, male to female, to the sound people. You need to know what that is. Otherwise, you're just a body seated on set doing nothing.
What would you say, Gerald?
Well, we all talk about film being the voice of the society, and the society is large, you know. So, I mean, in as much as we are saying about women not being represented in their stories, right now, with all the ideas we have, we can actually make that film. You know, it's not a matter of pleasing the audiences every single time, you know. Every film has an audience. That's what I believe. You know, however bad it may be, someone out there might like it and might watch it, might get a message in it, you know. So let's keep on making films for each and everyone.
What would you say, Anne, as a last parting shot?
I'll just say that we have so many topics, so many issues. We should stop copy-pasting. And for those who want to be in film, find out what, like Wangoi said, find out what you are good at. Don't go punishing yourself writing and maybe you're not a good storyteller. You just can't do it. And maybe you could be good at sound, you could be good at makeup. Film is large. So find out where your part is and just fit in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Wangoi and Gerald.
You're most
and
welcome.
when we return, we will be back with Anne. We'll be going into her son's kitchen to find out what he's done and whether he's done it right. So don't go away. We're talking women in film. Welcome back to Sugar and Spice. Now we're getting to the good part where we get to go and taste the food. So let's see what he has done.
That was an interesting topic.
Yes, it was, wasn't it?
I've learned so much.
It's just so interesting. You've learned so much about your own mother.
Now
haven't
she's a
you?
cameraman.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, so here we are.
Wow.
Nan
You
is
can,
one
you
of our
can, you can
favorite,
have
huh?
a seat.
Nan
And
is one of our
wow,
favorites.
that actually does look very good. And I'm very sad that I can have neither this.
You can eat
It's the only thing
salad.
you can't have. It's just the
Oh, this is the only thing I can have?
But it's cooked egg, so you can have it.
Oh, it's cooked.
In
Egg.
flour, so you won't...
No, I will still. I'm
You'll still
allergic
Wow.
to the egg. But this is very good. So
Yeah.
can you just run us
So we
down?
Vegetable.
have, this is the ring salad with some lettuce and a garnish of an egg wedge. And then we have the naan here, the chicken tikka. Then we have the raita sauce,
Okay,
which is
so-
yogurt, cucumber, tomato, onion, and cumin seed.
So just take us through what you did to the tikka. You did what, fried it?
To the
The
tikka,
pan?
we put it in the oven.
Oh, you put it in the oven.
Yeah, we put it in the
Okay.
oven for about 30 minutes
30
at
minutes.
180 degrees.
At 180 degrees. Okay.
And at the same time, when it's going on, you put in the naan so they can fluff, and you take them out. You don't leave them the same time. Once they brown, you get them out.
Oh, okay. So you
Yeah.
basically like you roll out the naan and then you put it
Like
in
a
the oven as
chapati.
well.
Yes.
Ah, so it's
Yeah.
on the oven. No wonder it tastes the way it does. I've never
Yeah.
known that. Okay. Are you proud? Are you feeling like a proud mama?
Feeling very proud.
You can even stand next to him. I can let you even taste next to him today. You can be a proud mama. Right next to oh.
Yes, I'm proud of you.
You're a proud mama.
That's good,
You're
yeah.
so proud of your mother. You're like, oh, look, you see, she's such a good food. So now, are we ready to go into the tasting?
Yeah,
Yes.
welcome.
So we will let you go first.
Have the
You
fork
can,
and the
do you want
knife
to wash
there.
your hands? You can do that. If you want. I'm just going to grab a leg, so I will wash my hands.
You just want a leg?
Yes, I want
Are you sure?
So is it the ring salad because it's in rings?
In rings, yeah.
Ah, okay. Because I did wonder when you called it.
And the Indians like it like that when they're having curry, tikka, anything spicy.
Yes. Okay. So I will get my hands.
Wow. I can take any plate?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just taste it up.
Oh. This looks nice.
But you found the topic interesting.
Yes, I did. Don't worry, your mother is interested. She's fine. Don't worry. She might poison me if I say, if I say something that you don't want me to say.
But before I became a chef, I actually wanted to become a filmmaker.
Nice. Very nice.
Very nice. Before you became a chef, you wanted to become a producer?
Yeah.
You're a producer in the kitchen.
You wanted to be a casting manager for my movies.
Oh, you went to But then it says we are glad that you picked this.
Yes, because you're now here eating.
We are happy. So let me see. This is, you said it's just yogurt.
Cucumber, tomato.
Really nice.
I like the sauce
onion,
already. And I like it more. And I'm now, you know, my daughter know how to do this.
As long as you wash your hands, you can just eat without the fork.
So,
in fact, that's how this meal is eaten. It's eaten without a fork.
So prepared for this story.
Still juicy,
It is very tasty.
You know the trick to tikka.
And your mother is very happy. She comes from Chickenville. She comes from Chicken Land. She's like,
very tasty.
It's still moist, I hope.
It is still moist, and I like the. So I can imagine now when you marinate it overnight how far in the spices will go.
It even changes the color.
It changes the color inside us because I can see it's partly changed.
Yeah. So you do it overnight, even the longer, even a week.
This is good, and it goes so well with that sauce.
With the sauce, yeah. The heat and the cold.
The heat and the cold.
Yes.
Oh, I like that because it's the cooling effect of the yogurt. And then the
especially because of the chili.
And
so it's like a base.
Okay. So that is really good. I mean, really, I hope all of you back home have had the best time, and we've been talking women in film, so you know, next time I challenge you when you're watching a film, just think about how that story is being told and see if you can kind of catch a few things about the politics behind it. But I hope you're also enjoying your chicken tikka, right? And naan. I don't know about the naan. It's very delicious. His mother is like, yes, it's very delicious. Thank you so much, Anne. We say thank you to Wangoy as well as to Gerald for being here with us. And we will see you on the next episode of Sugar and Spice. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I'm all about the chicken.